Example 3. In an arithmetic sequence, t4 is equal to 6 and 3t2, which means 3 times t2, is equal to t10. So term 10. Find the values of a and d, and hence, which means using what you've just found, write out the first 6 terms of the sequence. So I'm going to take the Tn formula from my formula book. So Tn equals a plus n minus 1 times d. So I'm going to write it out, and I'm going to replace Tn with T4 because I know T4 is part of my question. So I'm going to ignore the 6 for the moment. I'm just going to focus on T4, term 4. So a stays as a, but the n becomes 4, and the d stays as d. So simplifying, I get 4 times d and minus 1 times d, which gives me 4d minus 1d, which is 3d. Or I can just say 4 minus 1 is 3, and 3 times d is 3d. So you get the same answer, whichever way you want to work it. So T4 is equal to a plus 3d. So we have an equation in terms of a and d. Then we're going to do the same thing with T2. So we're going to ignore the 3 in front of the T2, and we're going to ignore the T10 for the moment. So we're going to do the same thing now with T2. So we write out the equation, the formula. So Tn equals a plus n minus 1 times d. We replace the n with 2, and we replace that n with 2. So then we bring down the a, and 2 times d is 2d, and minus 1 times d is minus 1d, and 2d minus 1d is d, or else you could just say 2 minus 1 is 1, and 1 times d is d. It's up to you whichever way you want to do it. So we end up with T2 is equal to a plus d. So again, we have an equation in terms of a and d, just like we had above. They are different, but they're both in terms of a and d, which is what we want. Because ultimately, we're trying to find a and d. So we want them in our equations. So then we're going to focus on T10 and do the exact same thing. So we write out the formula again, swapping the n's for 10. So we have a plus bracket 10 minus 1 times d. So 10 minus 1 is 9, and 9 times d is 9d. So we have T10, so term 10 is equal to a plus 9d. So again, we have an equation in terms of a and d, which is what we want, because we're trying to find a and d. So then we go back to our question. The question said T4, term 4, is equal to 6. So we write that down. And then we're going to replace T4 with a plus 3d, because we worked out T4 to be equal to a plus 3d. So we have a plus 3d is equal to 6. Because if T4 is equal to 6, like it told us in the question, and if T4 is equal to a plus 3d, then a plus 3d must also be equal to 6. Then we go back to our question again. So we have 3 times T2 is equal to T10. So 3 times T2 is equal to T10. We replace T2 with a plus d and a set of brackets around it. That's really, really important that you've got the set of brackets around it. And that's because we worked out T2 to be equal to a plus d. And then T10 we replace with a plus 9d, because we worked out T10 to be a plus 9d. Again, really important that you have the brackets around it, or because if you don't, you'll end up with 3a plus d, and that will be wrong. You have to now multiply in the 3. You're going to do 3 times a and 3 times d. So 3 times a is 3a, 3 times d is 3d. And then we're going to bring the a across the equal sign, becomes minus a. And then plus 9d comes across the equal sign, becomes minus 9d. That's equal to 0. So we have 3a minus a is 2a, and 3d minus 9d is minus 6d. And that's all equal to 0. So we just simplified. Now we can divide across by 2. So 2a minus 6d equals 0. Dividing across by 2 gives us a minus 3d equals 0. So that's just the simplest terms. We could have used the equation above it if we wanted to in the next step, but it just saves a little bit of time if you use the simplest terms. So we have 2 equations now. So the green one, a plus 3d is equal to 6. And then we have the yellow one, a minus 3d is equal to 0. Notice that they're both in terms of a and d, which is what we want because we're ultimately trying to find a and d. So now we're going to take those two equations, the green and the yellow one, and we're going to solve them simultaneously. So we have a plus 3d is equal to 6, and a minus 3d is equal to 0. So the 3d's will cancel, because plus 3d minus 3d is 0. We've got a plus a, which is 2a, and 6 plus 0 is 6. Dividing across by 2, we get 6 divided by 2, which is 3. So now a is 3. So we found a. That was the first thing we had to find. We found a. We need to now find d. So we're going to take a and we're going to substitute it into one of our equations. It doesn't matter which one. I'm just going to go with the top one. So we have a plus 3d is equal to 6. So the a becomes 3 because we worked out a to be 3. So 3 plus 3d is equal to 6. So 3d is equal to 6 minus 3 because the 3 comes over, the equal sign becomes minus 3. 6 minus 3 is 3. So 3d is equal to 3, and dividing across by 3, we get 3 divided by 3, which is 1. So the common difference is 1. So we were asked to find a. We found a to be equal to 3. We were asked to find d. We found d to be equal to 1. Now, hence, using what we just found, so using a and using d, we're going to write out the first 6 terms of the sequence. So we know that the first term is 3, because a is 3 and a represents the first term, or t1. And we know that the common difference is d. So we're going to add 1 every time. So 3 plus 1 is 4, plus 1 is 5, plus 1 is 6, plus 1 is 7, plus 1 is 8, ... So here we have the first 6 terms of the sequence. So just to go back to the question, just to actually make sure it all works out, we were told that T4 is equal to 6, so term 4 is 6. And we can see that 1, 2, 3, 4, yes, the fourth term is indeed 6. So that makes sense. So that makes sense with the information that was given in the question. We were also told that 3 times term 2 is equal to term 10. So term 2 is 4, and 3 times 4 is 12. So the 10th term, which will be over here, should be 12, if this is to make sense. And it is indeed. The 10th term is 12. So 3 times the second term, so 3 times 4, is equal to the 10th term, which is 12. So 3 times T2 is equal to 3 times 4, which is equal to 12, which is term 10. And again, 3 times 4 is 12. So just confirming that the information given in the question is correct and it fits in with our answer.